Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time we've got the pleasure of watching Meku playing in his Tier 8 Chinese premium heavy tank, the WZ-111. Now this is the second of two Chinese Tier 8 premium heavy tanks, the first one being the 112. But the WZ-111 was recently significantly buffed in the 9.17 patch to probably leapfrogging the 112 as being the superior vehicle. Now this tank has got preferential matchmaking, so it never has to meet tier 10 tanks, and so keep that in mind when you're listening to these statistics. Now the WZ-111 is anything but accurate. Its accuracy now is 0.44, and would you believe that previously it was 0.46? This 122mm gun is not meant to function very well at mid to long ranges, and as it is a preferential matchmaking tank, its standard penetration is 175. That is rather low indeed. Other aspects about the tank which were buffed was the engine power, now 600 horsepower, which makes this more mobile than the 112. It also had improved dispersion when it turns its turret and when it moves, and furthermore its aim time was buffed by pretty much about half a second, making it 3 seconds flat. Now don't get me wrong, 3 seconds isn't great, but it's certainly way better than 3.4, right? And also the armor on this vehicle was improved. This tank no longer has a truly weak lower plate. The lower plate armor on this vehicle is now 120mm, and while it is rather flat, it's not exceptionally well angled on the lower plate. That was a significant buff to the tank that removes one of the vehicle's key weak points. But as we can see there, the IS-3 is still able to go right through the lower plate when it's not angled, and that's because it's probably got about 200mm of effective armor. And the best thing to do in your 111 is to be face-hugging your opponents and try and force them to shoot through your upper plate. And if they do that, then we're going to see if this IS-3 is going to ricochet. Well, actually, he tried to shoot the cupola there, and he missed, and looks like he hit the mantlet of the vehicle. And so that means Meku can finish off one of the most dangerous vehicles on the enemy team, the standard Tier 8 Soviet heavy tank. Now, unlike vehicles such as the IS-6, for example, and the IS-3, which have got abysmal view range, the 111 is actually very good at 380 meters, which means it's very proficient at being able to spot for itself at mid to long ranges. It's just a shame that it doesn't really have the accuracy to be able to engage its opponents there. Now Meku is trying to do Heavy Tank 15 mission in his WZ-111 for the T-55A. And that means that I guess he's being a bit liberal on the heat rounds that he's firing now. If you don't know what HT-15 is, for the Object 260, I believe it's 8,000 combined damage blocked. It's way more than that. Is it 12,000? Sorry, I think it's between 10 and 8 for the T-55A. And he's got to do a hell of a lot of damage blocked, damage done, and also damage taken. And preferably, I guess, if he wants to complete the mission with honors, if he wants to skip artillery to be able to get the T-55A, that means he also has to survive. One thing that surprises me is how well his heat rounds did, for example, against the front of the Super Pershing on the enemy team. I thought that the spaced armor on the Super Pershing would have protected him from the 250mm of heat penetration this vehicle has. But certainly the heat round's good against the Oni. Meku ricochets the KV-4 on the enemy team and plows straight round and puts a shot into his lower plate. That was a seriously average roll there for 389, and the KV-4 now turns his attention to the IS-3 on Meku's team. Meku pulls back, puts a round into the side there. I think the thick tracks of the KV-4 absorbing the heat, but then again an AP round wouldn't have been able to go through there either. Meku now putting one through the lower plate, and even though it's exceptionally angled, the 250mm of heat pen on this tank able to go through the KV-4. The KV-4 misses Meku, probably shooting the IS-3 behind, who is now a one-shot. And there you go, the spaced armor on the side protecting the KV-4 there, who now manages to finish off the IS-3. It looks like a shell comes in from an M4A3E2, and now we find them in a 2 versus 7 situation. Well, it was 2 versus 8, but for not very long, as Meku manages to finish off the KV-4 and turns his attention to the T-37. He puts a big round into there for 405 damage, but unfortunately the Sherman misses. Hopefully that Sherman can deal with the T-37, while Meku can turn his attention to the Tier 7 auto-loading light tank that is the T-71. But good use of his angled armor here, preventing the T-37 from probably getting an easy shot into the back of his tank. And when you've got damaged fuel tanks, the last thing that you want is to be taking more hits. Chaki Papa on his team takes out the IKV-90B but falls, leaving Meku shortly in a 1 versus 5 situation, meaning that he's contesting a Kolobanos medal. And fair enough, these opponents are much lower tier than Meku, while the Hellcat is, and the KB3 is 1 tier below, but they are very healthy indeed. But not for long, as the Hellcat takes a big hit there to the tracks. Meku wants to put the pressure on now. It looks like the KB3 is going to be trying to flank him. The Hellcat locks Meku in place, shooting the tracks, but because Meku's side armor was so well angled, he was unable to also do damage to the tank. Now he wants to put pressure on the T-34-85 before the KV-3 manages to get his back. But now there's a tier 6 Japanese heavy tank, an OI, right in front of him. He's going to 2-shot that T-34-85. Nothing that tank can do really to a face-hugging 111. And now he needs to get his back into cover because the KV-3 has arrived. But the KV-3 misses through the little fence towards Meku's left there, and he makes a really big mistake here. Meku's done so much damage in this game, 6,550 damage and 8 kills, that he's now running low on armor piercing and heat rounds, and he fires at the lower plate of the OI. That's the worst thing that he can do. Now he fires at the upper plate of the OI. That's a slightly better thing to do when you're face hugging, but still not great. That 150 millimeters of well-angled Japanese armor bouncing the 122 millimeter Chinese gun. Luckily for him, that KV-3 fails to get through the side of his armor as well as tracking the tank, and so he retains most of his hit points. But he's really got to do something to this Japanese heavy, and what's he going to do? He's going to shoot it in the front of the mini turret. Much better to shoot the flat armor there, the perfect choice. Will he be able to find the round again? Well, I guess if he shoots in the same place he did last time, he should be able to shut down the tier 6 Japanese heavy, but the KV-3 has managed to get behind him. Another ricochet, probably off the spaced armor down the side of the 111. This whole area of the tank has 30 millimeters of spaced armor, and as we can see with the design of the angling of the armor, it's basically a shot catch, a lot like on an IS-7, copying that Soviet design the Chinese definitely were there. Oh gosh, now Meku is in a very awkward situation, having used his final armor-piercing round on the OI, or maybe that was a high-explosive round. I didn't quite catch it in time. All we know now is that he's certainly left with high-explosive rounds to try and take out the entirety of a KV-3. And unfortunately, because he over-angled his side armor there, the KV-3 was able to finally go through, also ammo-racking the WZ-111, making this exceptionally painful. Meku is trying to grind into the KV-3 to stop him from aiming down onto his upper plate, and it looks like the KV-3 is trying to go for Meku's cupolas. The cupolas are a weak point on this tank, but don't expect this to have the same weak turret armor that, for example, a fully upgraded IS-3 will have. The top of this tank is 55 millimeters thick, meaning that you're going to need a Jagdpanzer, or you're going to need an artillery AP shell, or a an FV-215B 183 round to be able to overmatch the top of this tank. Now Meku is slowly grinding down this KV-3, but he's literally a 50-50 if the KV-3 manages to penetrate him, whether he manages to take him down. Now you might be wondering why Meku is grinding into the side of the KV-3 like this, giving him little love bumps, and that's because he's actually damaging the tracks. Not a lot of people know that if you continue to ram a tracked tank in the side like this, you can actually keep them tracked for longer. You can actually hold them in place for the entire time if you've got a good power to weight ratio. And when you combine that with some high explosive rounds to the tracks, you certainly aren't going to be taking your opponents down very quickly, but you are going to be able to lock them in place. And with the fantastic armor buffs to the WZ-111, this is the perfect place to hold the KV-3 right in front of him, face hugging. Now the KV-3's got his tracks back up by the looks of it. He tries to push off, and he gets himself wedged slightly up the slope. But now the KV-3 seems to be tracked again, and Meku puts in one more shell. The KV-3 now angled so far up, he might be able to get a shot down onto the upper plate. Meku, please don't die right now. This 120 millimeters of upper hull armor probably isn't going to hold it, but it looks like he's going to fire a high explosive round onto the engine deck of the KV-3. Great choice there. The weakest armor of the KV-3 will be on the top of the tank there, and the high explosive round, while it might not penetrate entirely, is going to do the most possible damage. What a crazy end to a fantastic game by Meku here. 8,500 damage in a tier 8 tank. That would be an exceptional result in a tier 9 tank, or a tier 10 tank, let alone a tier 8 premium. And when you combine that with 7,605 damage block, there's no doubt that Meku finished the mission for his T55A. So this was unsurprisingly an ace tanker, 2,280 base experience points. What a fantastic round. The Pulls medal for his 10 kills. The Kolobanov's the one that everyone wants for standing alone against 5 opponents. A cool-headed medal for ricocheting 10 rounds in a row, maybe against the KB3. The Steel Wall for, as we mentioned, the 7,605 damage blocked. The High Caliber for his 8,503 damage. I've never managed to get anywhere close to that in a tier 8 tank. And what kind of profit did Meku make here? Well, actually he doesn't run a premium account. He made 150,000 credits without a premium account, but spend a tremendous amount on ammunition this game. So he only makes 35,000 credits profit. But if it had been with a premium account, that would have been 110,000 credits profit. Certainly showing you that when you're running on fine margins like this, a premium account can triple the amount of credits that you make. So let's take a look at how many games Meku has played in his WZ-111. 2,258. Well, you must certainly love this tank. And what kind of a coincidence is that? You've played 40,000 battles of World of Tanks exactly. Have you retired on that number, or is that a complete coincidence? How absolutely bizarre. And Meku, thank you so much for uploading this on What Replays for the community to enjoy. I certainly did. It was a tremendous game, and congratulations to you on, I guess, successfully completing the last mission for your T55A. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments what you think about the WZ-111, especially considering how much of a buff it had recently in patch 9.17. Do you have one yourself? Do you take it out for a spin as much as Meku does? Or is it simply a collector's item sitting at the back of your garage gathering dust? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.